It's been a while since I've done an unboxing video on this channel, and that is actually for somewhat good reason, because the audience hath spoken, and apparently unboxing content just does better in the form of like 40 to 60-second reels and TikTok videos. But for this particular guitar that I've just received today, I've decided I want to make a YouTube unboxing. And the guitar in question is inside this box. Now, this is a small box, and that is because this guitar is a bolt-on, and it has arrived with the neck detached from it because it came all the way from Pearson Instruments in New Zealand. And New Zealand is not close to Germany, so to save a little on postage, these are always shipped this way. But this is not just some random bolt-on Strat or something. This is probably, let's say, in the top 3 most unique guitars that I've ever seen. And so I'm not going to waste any more time. Let's get slicing into this box. What's inside the box? It's another box. Give me the goods. I know they're in there. Okay, I have to slice open the other side to get it. I assume this is going to be a neck plate and screws. Screws, truss rod adjustment keys, and a set of, I don't know what brand of strings this is. Probably, it looks like the Dario color-wise, but this isn't branded. This is just kind of a vacuum sealed thing, but it's nice that it comes with strings because, obviously, if you ship the neck and body separately, there can be no strings on it. Pearson Instruments order form. Well, I can't show you this yet because you don't know what the product is. Okay, this is the neck and the body, and yeah, let's tear into this very carefully so as not to scratch it. Okay, so this comes packaged securely, to say the least. I'm getting sick of the plastic. So here is the neck. I have to hide my face behind it for autofocus, but as you can probably tell, it's a headless. That smells of, uncured lacquer. This is quite a unique headless construction, though. You basically have just this thing on the end, and you run the strings through here, and then the ball ends stop on here. But this is obviously just a metal plate with a serial number on it and 6 holes drilled into it, which is fine. That's just not something I've seen before. What I'm also noticing is that the nut slots are cut very deep and very wide. Hold on. I don't know if you can really see that, like if you can gauge sort of what I'm talking about, but this is very, very, very deep. Let's move on to the body. Careful. Look at this. There's some masking tape on this Tunematic stop tail bridge that says do not adjust. So I guess I won't adjust that then. This is the Pearson Super B Special, I believe is the name of this particular model. And this is just solid aluminium with some, I assume this is like epoxy or plexiglass or something as a pickguard. This looks cool as fuck. So I'm just going to go off camera real quick to make it a tad bit easier to attach the neck and whatever without having to frame it nicely. And here it is, fully assembled and strung up. By the way, I didn't actually use whatever strings came with it. I used D'Addario XS as I usually do, so links in the description for those. D'Addario always hooks me up, and these are the best strings on the planet. Now, why the unpleasant demeanor? Well, this really, really, really looks amazing, right? This looks completely badass. It's probably one of the coolest looking guitars that I've ever seen. It's a Strandberg body style in a skeleton aluminum construction, and I think that's so unique and extremely cool. I'm a watch enthusiast, and some of my favorite watches are ones with skeleton movements because I like seeing inside stuff and like seeing how it works, and so the fact that all the electronics in the cavity are also visible through the transparent pickguard here, it is a great recipe executed in a way that after 15 minutes of use, I already dislike. So let me get into it. First of all, the very first thing that I noticed was while restringing it, how annoying it is to have the tuners right down here. Because these aren't your standard headless tuners, such as you would find on this GTRS W900, for example. No, there is basically a headstock down here with actual standard locking guitar tuners. The fact that they are locking tuners is nice, but what isn't nice is using them. Their proximity to the rest of the guitar makes them nearly impossible to just adjust on the fly without actually taking the thing and going like this and digging your fingers in here. It's less annoying on the bass side. You can access these fairly freely. Your hand will just kind of hit this bit of the guitar skeleton. But on the treble side, the bottom of the pickguard gets in the way. So you can only really adjust the G string very freely, and the B and E string you're gonna have trouble with because your hand gets under here. That's bad. Also, the reason there's a bunch of foam under here is because, well, it's better to just show you what happens if I take it out. It's normal for guitars to have some resonance between the nut and the tuners. Usually it's the nut, in this case it's the bridge because it's headless, but not this level of resonance. This is really quite insane. And because of how the guitar is constructed, I need about 4 inches of foam to shove under here, kind of ruining the aesthetics of the guitar, but also just making it usable in the first place because it really, really is not good to play without the foam. So I'm just gonna shove that back under here and we're gonna suck it up. This looks completely terrible, but it's the only way to suppress that loud noise. Hi, Kalen from a couple hours in the future here. I've now recorded a couple demo tracks with this, meaning I've extensively played it and tuned it and whatever, so I'm gonna sprinkle some of this future recording throughout the rest of the video. Now, feature-wise, by the way, this thing has a coil split individually for each of the pickups, which is cool, except these aren't the most splittable pickups, if you will. Like, of course, they can be split into 2 single coils. They just don't really sound that good. They sound a bit thin, which can be cool for, like, really high gain stuff, because it can get that kind of like early periphery sort of throaty tone. I can't really demo that too well because this is set up with 9s and tuned to E flat standard, but here's some sort of demo of what I'm talking about. The strap peg positioning is also interesting because there is one here which is kind of normal, except usually this is very thin so you couldn't fit it up top here, but usually it would be up top on the horn or on the back side of it, not on the front side. And the other one is down here below one of the tuners, which means your strap will be attached fully onto the front side of the guitar, and also the 2 ends of it will be within weirdly close proximity, because usually it would be up here and down here, and not both on the front side, like, I don't know, 10 inches from one another. And most of all, and this is the most unfortunate part, this thing is $900. Now, since when is something being affordable a bad thing? Well, if you look at this, you wouldn't assume it would be $900, right? When I was first sent a picture of this by somebody who wasn't Dom Pearson in charge of Pearson Guitars, I was actually shown these by somebody completely different, I thought these would be easily upwards of $2,000 because of the way that they look. This looks like it would be a high-end custom designed to be super ergonomic and super high quality to match the aesthetics of it. But instead what you're getting is a, let's not call it budget, 900 isn't necessarily budget, but a mid-range guitar that looks like it should be very, very expensive, but still has a Chinese OEM neck on it. What I think this should be, what the vision for it should have been, is a super high quality custom with this body and a full aluminium neck, or even a super high quality wooden neck, but I do think that the wood to aluminium contrast doesn't really work that well. It should have been a very, very high quality full aluminium custom, and then at some point, once a bunch of guitars have been sold, you could have gone, okay, this is established now, here is a budget line for those of you who do not have $3,000 to spend on a guitar. That would make it different. Notice how Epiphone didn't come before Gibson, or Squier didn't come before Fender? Same thing, you want to establish something of super high quality, and then make an affordable version of it for people who just cannot afford the super high quality version. Because if this was really amazing and high end, I could see this becoming the new go-to for technical death metal bands within the next 2 or 3 years. Imagine a super, super tight tech death performance on stage with these aluminium skeleton guitars. But as of right now, this is anything but gig ready. And one of my biggest gripes after actually having played it for a few hours is simply the material it's made out of. Let me explain. I'm not one of those tone wood nut jobs, right? I don't care if a guitar is made out of poplar, mahogany, maple, a solid slab of a rock, or even some completely non-organic material like Aristides guitars, which is like sort of a liquid proprietary blend of plastic and carbon fiber and whatever that is poured into a mold. What matters is not which material it's made out of, it's the fact that it has to be a solid slab of something as opposed to a few plates sort of stacked and screwed to each other. Because usually a guitar that's constructed in the bolt-on way will have the neck sitting inside a pocket, right? You can see this is sunken, as opposed to it being on one level with the rest of the guitar body, which means that this is now comfortably, snugly inside a pocket and bolted tightly to the rest of the instrument. Whereas this has no pocket, it has 4 screws holding it onto a thin plate of aluminium, with very little actually in the center here, and that sort of messes with the sustain of the entire thing, the acoustic resonance, which of course you wouldn't expect much resonance out of this anyway just by looking at it, but still, and it messes with the sound. It makes it sound incredibly thin because this entire thing is not really gelling together. It is a wood neck screwed onto a bunch of plates of metal, as opposed to one coherent instrument. And that's disappointing because the neck on its own actually feels good for what it is, which is a likely Chinese OEM guitar part. But in the context of the entire instrument, it just doesn't work. And that is putting aside the 2 or 3 dead frets on it. You can't really adjust the tuners on the fly very well. You really have to kind of dedicate time and effort into adjusting these tuners and fully retuning this thing between songs. It doesn't really have the highest quality frets or anything. Now, they are filed very, very nicely. There is not a single bit of fret sprout on this thing. Credit where it's due. This is not built poorly. It is just not executed very well from an ergonomic standpoint. Because while I have already mentioned the weird strap peg position, sitting with it feels like sitting with a Strandberg minus the comfort. I don't like Strandbergs very much for a multitude of reasons. The necks aren't really for me, yada yada. I know they are very, very popular, they just aren't for me. And part of that is owed to the shape. I'm just not the biggest fan of the Strandberg body shape. This is the Strandberg Bowden body shape without any of the benefits of the Strandberg Bowden body shape. Just quite unfortunate, because I see the vision, I see it so clearly, I see what this was supposed to be, and I just see that it is not quite there just yet. I was also not entirely correct about the nut slots being cut too deep. They are deeper than I would have cut them personally, or than I would like them, but they're not so deep that this entire thing is just damned to have fret buzz forever. It did have some fret buzz after I unboxed it, but it also came from New Zealand to Germany, so I gave it a quick setup and it's pretty fine now. But especially now that Strandberg has a Bowden model for $1,000 to $1,200, I don't see who the clientele for this is. Because while aesthetically, it beats the shit out of a regular Strandberg because of how cool and futuristic it looks, the fact that it looks like alien technology doesn't save it from being overall a mediocre instrument. That being said, if you want one, if you just value the aesthetics over practicality overall, there is still a link to buy one in the video description. You can use the code 6string for what I believe is a discount. I get a commission off it. I believe you get a discount when buying. I'm not quite sure, I'm sorry. But it was disappointing. I was let down by this because my expectations were quite high despite the price tag. I've played so much good stuff in the $900 to $1,500 price range. This is not in the top 10. This is designed to be able to hang off a wall hanger though. So, there is that. I'm really bummed that this is how this turned out. Remember earlier when I sniffed the neck and said it reeks of uncured lacquer? Yeah, it still does. But I feel like that is just the scent of a Chinese OEM factory, because this isn't like a unique headless neck design or anything. It is just a pretty standard one that has a little cutout for the proprietary string attachment thing. I'm bummed. I don't know. I think this guitar is only a few R&D steps away from being good, right? It is a little farther away from being great, but currently what it needs is a reason to exist in the first place, because pretty much everything else I own in a similar price range is a lot better. And the thing about products that sort of have a gimmick, like this guitar has the gimmick of being a cool aluminium skeleton looking thing, is that they shouldn't be reduced to their gimmick. The gimmick should be gravy. It should be the dot on the I or the cherry on the whatever, but it shouldn't be the main thing. It's like the more GTRS guitars, like the one I held into the camera earlier. That is a great guitar with the added gimmick of having inbuilt guitar tones and stuff, as opposed to being focused on being a smart guitar and whatever, and the rest of the instrument suffering under that. And if that happens, I will be the first to let you know, but until then, I'll see you in the next video.